an attempt of 57 yards. Does he have enough? Is it long enough?
Ian's extended, gets the snap, looks middle, looks over the middle, pass. Fired, is caught, 5, and that's Nelson into the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska. Carter Nelson. Back to throw is Dillon. Little screen to Emmett, makes a catch, 20, 25, 30, goes back to the middle of the field. He's at a 40.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back in the Nebraska Fan Perspective as a part of the Play the Fight Song College Football Show. We are excited to be back. It's been a long time since I talked to you guys, and we are getting closer to kickoff. And with that, we are going to bring on various members of various podcasts of Big Ten teams on Nebraska's schedule for this year. There, of course, is crossover. We have an Iowa Fan Perspective, so there's already going to be a Wisconsin one out there. There's a Rutgers preview out there, so check those guys out, of course, with Jake and his Iowa State stuff as well. But welcome back to Play the Fight Song Show on the Nebraska side of things. We're excited to welcome in Brian Lewerke, former Michigan State quarterback, now co-host and member of the You Are the Program podcast. You can find them on X at YATP_podcast, as well as Instagram. Former Michigan State quarterback, like I mentioned, and team captain, holds the 2019 single-season record for total offense with over 3,400 yards, was one of 20 finalists for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award back in 2019 as well, two-time bowl game MVP for Sparty, the 2017 Holiday Bowl with a blowout win over 42-17 over Wazoo, and then the 2019 Pinstripe Bowl with a 27-21 win over Wake. Signed with the New England Patriots back in 2020, also a brief stint with the New York Giants, the Seattle Sea Dragons, and finished with the Michigan Panthers. Brian, hopefully I did you justice. Welcome to the show.
That was perfect. That was exactly my history. You got it nailed spot on. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I always love getting a chance to talk to somebody that we can actually apply, because our show operates as two former collegiate baseball players and a collegiate basketball players just in love with college football. So we can actually talk a little X's and O's, and somebody's with experience actually in the Big Ten just makes it that much better. So super excited for it. Let's start it off there. Let's talk about the You Are the Program podcast first. How did it come to fruition? I mean, you got three former players coming back to talk about their college roots. I mean, you're from Arizona. Why Michigan State outside of being an alumni?
Yeah, so the podcast kind of started. It was me and my buddy Tyler Higbee and Dante Rosano. Higbee was my roommate all through college. They actually started it a year before I hopped on, and they were just talking Michigan State ball. I think it was in 2022. They asked me if I wanted to be, maybe 23, if I wanted to be like full-time on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. It helps me keep up with Michigan State football. I love talking football. So that was an awesome opportunity to come and join with them. And just kind of going to Michigan State. I don't know. It was a program obviously far away from me in Arizona. I kind of wanted to get out and experience a little bit of the U.S., and Michigan was the perfect opportunity to do that. I love Coach
East Lansing, of all places.
Yeah, I know.
Map, right?
Right. It's not the prettiest city in the world. I will admit that, but it is a great college town. They love their sports there. Coach D'Antonio was the main reason that I went there. He was a great coach. Everyone that knows Michigan State football, they always talk about the family atmosphere, and he really embodied that and made everyone there feel very welcome. So he was my quarterback coach, Brad Salem, at the time. I got to give him a little shout out. He's currently at Memphis, I think, as their tight ends coach, but he was a great coach back then, and I still talk to him to this day. So,
yeah, definitely rolled out a bunch of good offenses with your group, and then look at Memphis on the offense side of the ball now, and not too bad or shabby of a program over there. So he definitely knows what he's doing. Let's go into the 2024 season and talk Michigan State football for a second, and we're going to talk 2024 to start, and then we'll roll it into 2025. First-year head coach and Jonathan Smith comes over from Oregon State, known for building that program from really the depths of hell from where they were at. And now he's expected to do the same after the Mel Tucker situation. Michigan State cleans house. He kind of brings in all these guys last year. You go 5-7, 3-6 in the Big Ten. What was the feeling around both a former player, fan, alumni of the program? What was the feeling for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the season last year wasn't kind of what we wanted and what we expected, but obviously I think the bar is a bowl game, and anything past that, I think in your first year is probably a plus. Obviously, you want to get to the 9-10 double-digit wins, get to the playoffs, stuff like that. But coming from Oregon State, obviously you had Aidan Chiles over there. So Aidan kind of knew the system a little bit, kind of helped him maybe a little more than most guys going into the first year. But I think Jonathan Smith is a great coach. I think their offensive scheme that they've been running the last year in 2024 was awesome. And I'm excited to see what kind of wrinkles they have coming up this year.
Yeah, it definitely should be a widely schemed offense. I feel like last year we got a good chance to see a lot of Aidan Chiles, especially with some decision-making issues he had earlier in the year. He kind of ironed some of those out in the back end of Big Ten play, but it felt like to me, Jonathan Smith really just kind of opened things up and let him play his game in year one. Do you feel the same, or do you think the offense is going to be a little bit more condensed in 2025 than it was last year?
I think to an extent. I mean, Coach Smith is a quarterback guy, so he definitely allows those quarterbacks to do what they can. And obviously, Aidan, I think, is one of the best improvisers in all of college football.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an incredible arm. He's throwing those 30-yard comebacks to the field as a redshirt freshman. That's insane. So he's got all the talent in the world. They may try and say like, hey, we don't got to win this game on this play. So just keep the offense, keep the faith. We brought in some good players around him this year, hopefully. So as long as he utilizes those guys and makes some plays with his feet, I think he'll be good.
Yeah, and outside of that, I guess we don't get a chance to ask this often, as I mentioned. From the X's and O's standpoint, is there anything with how young he is? I mean, just going into his junior year, but sophomore year that we've seen him in full time. Anything in his game that you think, he's just missing this, and once he gets that, he's an elite quarterback? I mean, you have more experience than any of us will listening to this.
I think he has all that physical abilities. Obviously, I'm not in the quarterback room, so I'm not sure about his mental and how he's processing and reading the game. But he has an incredible arm. He has good feet. He can outrun guys. He can run over guys. He has good pocket presence. I think maybe just obviously any guy can continue to hone in their reading the defenses, making sure you understand the game plan, in and out. Even you're in the NFL for 10, 15 years and you're still doing that sort of thing. So I would like to see some improvement there in that aspect. Like I said, I'm not in the quarterback room, so I'm not sure exactly what the process is and what's going into that. But any quarterback can always improve their mental.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think I looked at it, and I think Chiles last year on the stat sheet had 225 rushing yards. But when you look at your 2019 season, you had more than that. His ability to use his legs, I feel like, am I often saying that maybe running the ball a little bit more, or a couple of run looks, or maybe an improved offensive line, which we'll go into, will help, but maybe just seeing him take off a little bit every now and then can avoid those 11 picks he threw last year?
Yeah, 100%. And that was kind of my sophomore year. I was a big runner. I was kind of one read, two read, tuck and run, and just trying to get as many yards as I can. And going into my junior year, I kind of tried to become a little bit more of a pocket passer, and I feel like it hurt my running ability. So I kind of tried to transition into my senior year as like, hey, if there's an opportunity to run, I'm going to run it. I can take the hits. It's fine. I'm still young. At least I was back in the day.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of his thing, is not being like too honed in on like, hey, I need to be a pocket passer, or hey, I need to be a runner. Just do what the defense tells you to do. If you see an opportunity for a deep ball, take it. If you see everyone turn their backs, tuck and run. So,
okay, makes perfect sense. And I gotta commend you. I think that's the different brain wiring between media and football players. Is like, I'm looking at the Big Ten, and I'm not taking off if I'm a quarterback. I'm going NFL wide receiver. Some of these guys, I mean, even on 2-10 Purdue, are just absolutely laying the wood consistently. So
yeah,
maybe that's a part of it and keeping them upright. I want to go into the offensive line because Jonathan Smith talked about it through media days and various interviews throughout the spring, how he feels like this is the most improved unit. And last year, the unit struggled, man. I mean, 9.5% of their dropbacks were sacks. So, I mean, it's a big piece of this offense that needs to improve. And they brought in some transfers to do so. Is this kind of the area of concern in the offense that you're like, man, if this doesn't work out again, who cares about the weapons because we can't keep Chiles upright?
100%. And I feel like that's kind of how it is with every team. You got to be good in the trenches, especially at the offensive line position. Like you mentioned, I'm going to pull up my notes here real quick. We brought in a new center, new right guard, new right tackle, all that were productive at their previous school. So obviously that hopefully is going to make a big difference. We have a couple returning guys that can hopefully protect Chiles back there, but you got to, it all starts up front. You got to have a good offensive lineman. My co-host of my podcast, Tyler Higbee, was a former offensive lineman. And every time we're talking, I always talk quarterbacks, obviously, because I'm a quarterback. He always talks offensive line because that was his position. And that's the kind of the thing that Michigan State is really grounded on, is being, tough nosed, blue collar, trying to get that push up front. And I think that's obviously going to be a very big part of this season.
Yeah, because you think back to the D'Antonio days and the teams that he had, and I think it's just a kind of a platform you have to establish in the Big Ten is you got to be good up front on both sides of the ball. Yeah. And Michigan State struggled with that last year. They feel good about the front seven on defense, which we'll get into that. But on the outside, you got to feel good about the weapons. We mentioned the transfers, 28th transfer class in the country. You brought in a whole bunch of new faces, but you returned one big one. And I want to talk about Nick Marsh. I mean, this guy, probably one of the more under the radar weapons in the Big Ten, I would say, finished a lot of statistics behind Jeremiah Smith in regards to freshmen. And he just kind of got rid off, set the single season record for receptions, for receiving yards. What do you think about Nick Smith in this group for this squad this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be incredible. Obviously, he had a great campaign last year. He's that big physical guy that can go up and make plays. He's also a deep threat. He's fast, so he can kind of take the top off the defense. And in today's day and age, people are throwing money left to right trying to get him. So I'm glad that he has that, that Spartan dog in him, and he wants to stay and produce for the Spartans. Obviously, he's got a great quarterback. You can go somewhere else and you kind of don't have a great quarterback situation. So I'm glad he decided to stay with us. And I think he's going to be probably the biggest piece weapon-wise with this offense.
Yeah, and they had some nice ads, too, on the outside. I mentioned the transfers. Omari Kelly coming over from Middle Tennessee. He was All-Conference USA last year. I guess the offense as a whole, you look at the unit, what do you think needs to change from last year to this year to get to maybe bowl eligibility? I mean, the expectations are wherever you're at, which we'll get into, but what do you think is the biggest piece of this offense? I think just understanding the scheme, or where are you at?
I think it's kind of what we mentioned earlier. It's the offensive line and protecting Aidan Chiles and letting him do his thing and throw the ball. I think he can be a first-round draft pick coming up next season in the NFL draft. And if we can keep him upright, let him do his thing, dissect the defense, make some plays, I think he can be really good for us. And again, that starts up front and kind of getting our tight end Jack Velling a little more involved. We were really big on him going into the 2024 campaign, coming over from Oregon State. And he kind of didn't, whether he didn't produce or we didn't really feed him that much. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's a very, he's a big dude. I don't know exactly how tall, but he's got to be about 6'5", 230, 240, and he can catch the ball and he can run. So I think he's going to be a big piece of this offense too. Yeah,
and we didn't talk the running back room, but Michigan State, and we talked about what you need in the Big Ten, be good up front, right? But you also got to kind of be able to run the ball every now and then, or at least run the clock out. That's just kind of how the conference works. The running back room, how are you feeling there? Because Michigan State hasn't been top 100 nationally in the last 4 or 5 years rushing, outside of the Kenneth Walker year, which was obviously a massive year for just one guy. But what do you think about the running back room and how integrated they need to be in the offense this year? Because they just didn't establish it much last year.
Yeah, and even going back to really when I was playing, I mean, we had LJ Scott, my first
pretty good back.
Year. And then kind of going after that, we haven't really had kind of that workhorse since Kenneth Walker, his one campaign that he had. So I'm curious to see. Right now we got Elijah Tolliver kind of slotted to start. So we need someone to step up in that spot. I think that's probably the spot I'm most curious to see, like who's going to be the guy there. Cause like I said, we haven't really had a guy kind of fill the shoes there in a little bit.
And I have to take the chance because JP's in here producing, running the graphics for this show. I believe, was it LJ Scott that extended the ball to beat Iowa in the Big Ten title?
It was.
He's double flipping me the bird because I know that's one of his least favorite moments of his Iowa fandom. But hey, he got referenced, and I saw the opportunity, so I got to chirp the Hawks where I can. Let's go into the defense a little bit, but before we do that, let's talk our great partner over at No Rivals. You got the No Rivals cap on. I've got the alma mater cap on. Check them out. They've got Michigan State. If you're a Michigan State fan in here or any Big Ten team, check them out. ShopNoRivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on your order. They got a bunch of new designs, a bunch of new hats dropping throughout the season. Gear up for game day with Shop No Rivals. So check them out today. Brian, I love that you wore it. It was just actually worked out perfectly. So give them a look today. Shout out No Rivals. All right, now let's go into the defense. The defense. What's your overall thoughts? What's the fan base? I mean, this is obviously a point that it kind of they got after him a little bit last year. I mean, there were some big numbers that they led up, and they need to improve in various areas. They brought in a bunch of names, but overall feel for the defense headed into 25.
Yeah, overall feel. This is kind of the going back to the same thing I've been saying with. We haven't really had that, stout defense since Coach D'Antonio days as well.
Yep.
We haven't had the team that's holding Michigan to negative 48 or whatever rushing yards it was back in 2013. So I would love to get back to that and just kind of see who steps up. Like you mentioned, we had, I think, 3 linebackers and 3 defensive linemen out that we had. I know a big name up front is Alex Van Sumeren. His brother currently plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, which is, I actually happen to live in Philadelphia, so I'm kind of a big Eagles fan right now. But his younger brother Alex is on the Spartans right now, and hoping for a big season from him.
Yeah, then they've got let's go through the various groups. Starting at the safeties, you got a couple of good returners. Martinez and Spencer come back on the backside of that defense, and they're looking to get back sort of around your timeline, especially in the D'Antonio days, that no-fly zone. That just hasn't been there for Michigan State as it was. Just the dominant defense overall those D'Antonio teams had. But how big is it to retain a couple of pieces like this or any new faces in the mix that excite you?
Yeah, I think Nakai Martinez was a big name last year. Obviously a great player, and hoping that his kind of leadership is able to kind of bolster that group. That's probably the biggest area of improvement that I would like to see is in that defensive back room. Obviously teams like Ohio State, Oregon were kind of in the last couple of years were taking advantage of that that discrepancy in the back that we weren't able to fill. So hoping for a big jump there and a big improvement in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I definitely think it's an area of emphasis for the defense. I think I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think it was around 8 yards per catch they gave up. So, I mean, if you take a step up in that and slow the game down a little bit and stop giving up those big chunk plays, you got to expect a little bit of improvement overall. And you're just looking, I mean, like I said, you win 5 games last year. We're just trying to get back to a bowl game. It's a small step forward to get where you are. I mean, one of the games that sticks out in my mind, sorry, JP, but like that Michigan State team last year, you start 3-0. Then you drop a couple, and then all of a sudden, here's this weird pop-up win where you put up 32 points against Iowa. So I think just a little bit more consistency in the scheme, especially defensively and offensively, is going to be important for this group. I think you lose guys like Newman and Turner, but the front 7 seems solid to me on defense. And I know Smith's talked about it through media days and all throughout spring and now going into fall camp, how he feels about the front 7. How do you feel about that group up front defending the run?
Yeah, I'm like it. Like I mentioned, Alex Van Sumeren's a big name up there. We brought in a couple transfers as well. Grady Kelly, David Santiago up on that defensive line. Jordan Hall is also a big name in the linebacker group. He was a young guy that kind of stepped up for us last year, and I'm excited to see him take the next step. I think he can be a really good player, possibly a high draft pick coming up in the draft in the next couple of years. So I'm excited to see those guys ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great defensive mind. The defensive coordinator, one of the more underrated names in college football, but the program changes, I think, are something that people don't know about. I mean, new AD, you get Jay Brett, you bring him in. Overall, before we get into the schedule, just where are your thoughts at as a former player? I mean, you probably got your nose more into inside stuff than we do. Maybe not because it's a different staff, but the overall thoughts of the program and where it stands. Do you like Smith? Do you like the new AD? And do you like the direction they're headed as a Michigan State fan?
Yes, I love both. I love Jonathan Smith. I love J-Bat coming in. I think he obviously has – J-Bat has that tree from Alabama, Nick Saban. He's kind of been around winning. So I love hopefully what he's going to be able to do. What I don't love is that obviously those guys didn't come in together. Obviously J-Bat did not hire Jonathan Smith. So I'm hoping that, he at least gives Jonathan Smith kind of a chance to run with this team a little bit. Because, when, an AD comes in, doesn't hire the coach, there can kind of be a little bit of not seeing eye to eye on some things. So I'm hoping there's a fair opportunity in that sense, but I love both guys. I think they're going to be both great for Spartan athletics.
I mean, nobody understands it more than me. These helmets behind me, I just went through the Trev Alberts and Scott Frost butting of heads, and now they're both just running their mouths everywhere else they go. So we've been through it a little bit. We haven't seen Michigan State, Nebraska matchup since 2023. They kind of do this year on, year off thing. This is the first time Michigan State, I think, is coming to Lincoln in quite some time. I think the last one was a Scott Frost snow game that ended like 9-6 or 6-3. Something weird like
2018,
that. Yeah. Oh,
That was
yeah.
that was my junior year. I was on that team. I had gotten hurt, I think either the week prior or 2 weeks prior against Penn State, and so I didn't play that game. I was just the field goal holder for that game. But that was the coldest game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, it didn't look fun.
Crazy.
I definitely missed that one in the stands. Don't regret it whatsoever. I think mentally it was probably good to miss a lot of the Scott Frost timelines. But a fun question before we get into the schedule. I looked back at your career. Maybe that's why I didn't pop up, because you didn't play in that game. But you played it at Penn State. You played in the Big House. You played in the Shoe. Toughest place to play in your mind, especially as a quarterback. This is the answer you want.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, Michigan is up there as well. The Shoe, Penn State, Nebraska. I've obviously wasn't tuned into that game.
What were we? 0-7 at that time? We were like 0-6.
Yeah,
when we won that game.
Yeah, it was a pretty tough game for both sides. And we were going in. I think we were maybe like 3-3 or 4-2. I don't even know. But my buddy Tyler Higbee says that was the loudest game he's ever played in as well. Just you can't, like, on the field, you can't hear a thing. So
that's actually shocking. I definitely thought Penn State would take the nod over us, but I think Nebraska fans got to a point that year where it was just like drunkenly from the tailgates coming into the 0-6 football team and just itching to get a win. So definitely one of the uglier football games. That's funny that you ended up playing in that one. I didn't put that together, but that was 2018. To finish up tonight, we appreciate your time, but let's talk schedule wise, and let's look at Michigan State's schedule headed into 2025, because it's kind of, I don't love it for you guys. I really don't, because you start off similar to last year. You got Western Michigan, you get Boston College, who loses out in Castellanos, but showed some decent things after him. And Bill O'Brien's a Bill O'Brien coach team. Youngstown State should be a win, but then kicking off your Big Ten season on the road in Cali against USC. And then you come to Lincoln, and then you kind of bring a California team into East Lansing, but kind of a gauntlet here. Any games here that stick out in your mind is like, this could be the turning point of the season? I know you guys just previewed the USC matchup over on your podcast. Any games that stick out for you outside of obvious Michigan being the rivalry game that could be a turning point for this team in 2025?
Yeah, I think the big spot is kind of that USC. We go USC at USC, then bye week, and then at Nebraska. I think that's kind of the big stretch right there. If you can go 3-0 in your non-conference games, going into that USC game at 3-0. Obviously, you love a win. It's gonna be tough to go out to California. I mean, USC's always has an explosive offense. They're gonna be a good team. Say you lose that game, you're 3-1. You got to recoup a little bit. Go to Nebraska. I think that game's like, if you go 3-0, lose at USC, go to Nebraska. This kind of becomes like the kind of must win for that turning point in the season, because then you're 3-2 playing UCLA at home. UCLA could kind of be a little bit of a trap game for us at home. You're 3-3
they got
at
a couple
that point.
Of teams.
Yeah. So, and you lose that UCLA game, you're 3-3 at that point, and then you got an absolute gauntlet where you got to scrap for 3 wins to try to make a bowl game. So I think that kind of spot where it goes USC by Nebraska, I think is going to be big for us.
Yeah, and I just thought of it now after looking at what you just said, and the schedule is both teams are coming off a bye, Nebraska and Michigan State on that week. So they'll both be coming off fresh. Nebraska will play at home versus Michigan, then have the bye week, then bring in Michigan State. So it's going to be interesting. Nebraska's not great coming off byes in recent history, but they're not great at anything in recent history. But definitely one to note for sure, especially after the Michigan game could go either way. It feels like nobody really knows what they're going to be. One thing that stuck out to me on this schedule too, though, is the road games. I mean, you guys didn't get the easiest draw in the world. USC, Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota, which is kind of a sneaky place to play. And then you go to Kinnick this year, where they're looking for a little bit of revenge. So not the easiest road schedule. Did you ever play in Kinnick, by the way? I got the Iowa guy in here.
No. That was probably like one of 2 stadiums that I didn't play in, and I was kind of disappointed. I heard that's a great place. Yeah,
it's I've heard it's loud. I will never, ever give that program my money, so I'll never be in attendance, but that's just how it rolls sometimes. The finish of the season, you got Maryland. That seems like a gettable game at the end of the year, but final record predictions. I mean, we're getting into the nitty gritty here. We're 4 weeks away from kickoff. What are you thinking for Michigan State in 2025? What is success, and what do you see happening?
I think success would be 8 games. 8-4, I think, is a successful season. I think, like I said earlier in the show, I think the bar is a bowl game. So we have to reach 6. get those extra practices, get that experience for the guys. But I think 9 wins is a pretty successful season going into year 2. Obviously, I would love more, and I wouldn't be shocked if we got more. But I'm not betting on us to win double-digit games.
Yeah. Do you think the fan base is with you from what you've heard from other people and former players, obviously, that you do your show with, or do you think that they're kind of just, 6 is where they need to be, but like 6 is kind of where they see being? I mean, I think 8's probably the highest number. JP, any idea on their over/under for this year? I think is it 5, 6.5, 5.5? Yeah, I mean, so Vegas thinks you're at 6. What makes you think 8-4? What am I missing that I guess a Michigan State fan would know more about their team that you think we're missing?
Where we can get to 8 wins, you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, I think looking at losses wise, I think you can Indiana like all losing.
Careful, this is a Nebraska show. Careful.
I know.
Go ahead.
I know. Indiana. Okay, at Nebraska, I could give that one obviously a toss up. I'm thinking more where we're going to be double digit underdogs. Indiana, Michigan, Penn State, possibly Iowa, depending on that environment and where they are in that point of the season. But I don't know. That's obviously a very optimistic look. I think a lot of guys, and obviously when you start looking at the season, you start going into the season, you kind of start drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit as well. As a player, I wasn't like that at all. I was like, all right, next game. And I'm not just saying this because I'm was a former player. That was actually how I was. But now that I've become a fan, I'm kind of like, all right, look at the schedule. Like you go into the season in March and you're like, all right, let's just try and get a bowl game. Then you get a little closer. You're like, all right, we can get double-digit wins.
Yeah. Hey, you're talking to a program that's got that we're like a 20,000 time off-season national champion. It doesn't matter if we win 3 games the year before. It's happening next year. So I completely understand there. And as a former player, I can only imagine how that goes. But how has the transfer been from former player to your professional career, and then now you're a fan and you join the podcast world to close the show? How's that transfer been? It's not a conversation we have often.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not like the most fun thing in the world when you're coming out of college, and then I kind of had a bumpy road in the NFL and in the UFL, but I've accepted it. I'm very happy with what I did in college and what I did in the pros, and I'm excited to move on to the next chapter of my life. But it was a lot of fun, and I obviously like doing the podcast, like talking Michigan State football because it keeps me involved. I try and go to at least one game a year. Just to stay involved with the team and kind of get on campus a little bit. But I'm just excited to be a fan again. And it kind of makes it a lot easier. Like you go into a game, you win it, everything's good. You lose it, it's like, all right, it's just Sunday the next day. So it's not like my career is riding or dying on football now.
Oh yeah, that definitely is probably the different point of view. I mean, as a fan, you would have thought my career was riding or dying. That's just kind of how it works in the thick of the Midwest, I guess. It's like Sunday is a very bad day and Nebraska loses, especially in the 3 main states that we're in. It's like can ruin your week and weekend. So that will probably settle in more as you step into your fan role. But Brian,
that's a good point.
Yeah, it definitely will take over your life, especially when you look forward to it as much as we do. But we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining. We'll definitely hopefully have you back right before that Michigan State Nebraska game, and we can cover the Spartans in Nebraska where we know where they'll be then. But definitely a great look into it. So appreciate your time. You're always welcome back on the Play the Fight Song show, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. So Shop No Rivals, Brian, appreciate you so much. Get a great hat like Brian over at shopnorivals.com. Use the code PTFS. Brian, thanks again. We'll see you next time. Go Big Red.